Hello there. Good evening or good morning. It's 3:22 here in Somerset, the UK. I've just finished watching Sir David Davis's excellent speech, excellent presentation to the House of Commons, to the chamber that, as you might expect, is virtually empty. About 5 people in it, and someone's dog, Yeah, about 5 people, weren't there, really? Gosh, it was fantastically well done. I made a few notes about that. I was also in tandem. I was flipping between the two of them, watching Guy Rowland's part 2 of Botched, of the Botched documentary, which was absolutely great as well. He's done such an amazing job, Guy Rowland's, on that. It's just superb, and all the contributors, Dr. Watts, Stephanie Davies, Richard Gill's there, Professor Hutton. Probably going to miss people out, but Richard Hammond. Is it Richard Hammond? Philip Hammond. Richard Hammond is the hamster of love. That's what they called him. Philip Hammond of Private Eye. So yeah, and I've been looking at some responses on Twitter, and they're very interesting as well. Obviously, yeah, there's only 5 people in that chamber, but as people have been making the point, I've got him on block, the Snowden character, but people are responding to him saying, oh, well, it's not about just people hearing it in Parliament. This is about it being a public presentation that Sir David Davis has given, and it will be seen by a huge number of people, and it is being seen by a lot of people, and that's going to grow and grow and grow, and many tens of thousands of people saw his, probably even well over 100,000 saw his first presentation quite some time ago about the same matter. So I wrote some notes here. I don't want to go on too long, so I just want to they're a bit scattergun. They're about both of the document. Well, the speech and the documentary, really, but mostly about the speech. The documentary was just brilliantly done and very powerful, very clear, totally convincing. I mean, it's not that I don't need to be convinced, but other people do, and but I think it would be very. It would have a great effect on a lot of people if they really are open to it and really considered it. And it raises even further questions. It raises further questions, which is part of its power and its depth. So yeah, what did I write down here? And it's just in order of watching the speech. Most of this is David Davis's speech, presentation. He talks about the meeting on the 15th of May 2017, the one that changes everything, apparently. He doesn't mention Dr. Holt. Now, I'm not saying that to criticise him. I'm just saying it's interesting that she kind of slides by a lot of the time. I know Jenny, Nurse Jenny, is very into Dr. Holt in terms of her role. We still haven't established whether there's a potential link, and I know it's probably it's a long shot, and there might be nothing in it. Is there a connection between Dr. Susanna Holt, and Vicky or Victoria Holt, who was a detective in the Hummingbird operation, the Operation Hummingbird, and also many thanks to Operation Merlin Falcon for bringing that to the surface in a way, because he was, in one of his videos, he says, who's this investigator? Who's this investigator, Vicky Holt? And it gives her 4-figure number, police number. Now, I'd seen that person before because she appears in the Operation Mockingbird
puff piece video, but you don't see her name in that. But Operation Merlin Falcon says, I want to know who she is, and so I've done an FOI, and I didn't get any direct joy there about that. But Operation Merlin Falcon suggested a series of questions to ask them, which wasn't going as directly as I initially did. And it was with regard to, was she taken off the operation for reasons, did she have to recuse herself? Were there reasons why did she stay on it? So there were 3 questions that Operation Berlin Falcon suggested, and I sent them verbatim. That FOI is still outstanding from the Cancer Chester Police, and I'd be interested to see what they say about it, because it was just a genius way that Operation Merlin Falcon suggested asking them about it, which wouldn't give them the easy out. But I'll move on now to the next bit that I wrote about. Yeah, there was about 5 MPs there, because it's not something about their salaries, so they never can't be bothered to turn up, can they? If it's not about their salaries, they're not going to turn up. But that's where we are. Let me pause it a minute to look at my notes. I'm just going to flip to a slightly different matter that's come up as well. Is that I did a few tweets about it, and it came up in the live a bit as well. Having police officers in the CCRC, I think it's a terrible idea. And having the CCRC at all, I don't see the need for it to be there at all. It's only been there since 1997. Did we not have appeals before 1997? The Court of Appeal need to be completely overhauled and be made fit for purpose. That's what needs to happen. Instead of having two gatekeepers instead of one, that's what's happened actually, is that the CCRC simply become a secondary gatekeeper, in a sense protecting the Court of Appeal from its own rigidity by filtering out so many, or taking endless numbers of years to go through applications to them. It's just 2 hoops, or 2 things you've got to get over instead of just one, then to reach an actual appeal. Some of the responses I've had on Twitter make no sense to me, saying they've got different functions. Well, what happened? What was going on before 1997 then? Was there a function of law that was just not operating at all then, that you needed this organisation, but for hundreds of years before it, there was nothing doing it? No, it's nonsense. You need a fit for purpose Court of Appeal. Then you won't need a CCRC. You won't need one. And I think in some ways, whether this is deliberate or not, what it's become is a further hurdle to achieving justice in many cases, and maintaining miscarriages of justice rather than overturning them as quickly as possible and as necessarily as possible. So that's that bit. So yeah, you've got to improve that. Another point, going back to David Davis's speech in Parliament, he says, this isn't a criticism of him, because it was an amazing speech actually, but it's just a very fine point, I think, because he talks about Evans, and he's criticising Evans quite rightly, and saying that Evans, and talking about the other judge, I've forgotten his name now, it's gone out of my head, who said his information was worthless, his work was worthless, his reports were worthless, he's tendentious, he's just, he's fitting his reports towards guilt as opposed to just an impartial expert view. And David Davis says Evans, and he does it as a kind of a generalized thing, saying Evans, he tailors his work for the prosecution always, but then Evans has got an easy response. He says, well, no, I didn't always work for the prosecution. And that might well be the case. He has said that a number of times. So it's just not to give him a chance to come back and say, well, I don't always work for the prosecution. Work for them. You're meant to be working for the court and all that kind of superficial stuff that he says and other people say. But we all know the reality is that they're working for sides, and because they're being paid by a side. So they're not impartial, and they never are, and it's just a pretense to think that they are. So there's that. And so basically it's just a matter of fine accuracy of to say that, well, Evans can tailor his reports in an unfair way, and it doesn't matter whether it's defense or prosecution. It's the principle of his reports being reliable or not. It doesn't matter whether it's for the prosecution or defense. It's the quality of them and how reliable they are, and how problematic they are, irrespective of whom he is, in quotes, said to be working for, or whether he pretends to be working for the court, but he's working for horses and ponies, basically. Not horses and ponies, well, horses, ponies and cars. Horses, ponies and cars, that's what he's working for. And paying off student debt for the children. And David Davis makes a quip about that. And that was appropriate, actually. Okay, what's the next bit? I've got another note here about the church. That's got nothing to do with my notes about this. So the next bit is, we've heard this obviously for quite some time now about the CPS directing Cheshire Police to drop Professor Hutton effectively. Well, not effectively, just to do it, yeah, drop Professor Hutton. So I just wondered, has a name ever been attached to that? Was it Pascal Jones specifically who did that? So I'll just leave that as a question. Was it Pascal Jones? Is she the responsible person who made that, who gave that direction? So what are we looking at here? I need to pause a minute. Oh yes, just a slight segue again. Hope this is all right, jotting around a little bit, because it's all about the same thing really. But I was recently deemed vexatious and part of a campaign by the Countess of Chester Hospital's Freedom of Information Department, office, whatever you want to call it. I've asked them to review that request now. I've not gone too far into their language, because I've found in recent years, when you're sort of dealing with organisations like this, the more you try to explain, the worse it gets. So I tried to keep it as minimal as possible, and to reiterate that the outstanding FOIs, it seems as though they've kind of done this blanket block of me now, which is just ridiculous, really. It's just appalling, because I've asked for too much information. That's what it is, you know. But I've just reiterated that the outstanding ones thus far, and I should have the right to continue to do more. Why not? You know, why not? You know, they're not repetition, so they're all new questions, the outstanding ones. The only ones where they could make a case for saying it's a request that has been already fulfilled, it's not the case. And I explained to them in my request for a review, because I say this is to do with mortality data, and it's to do with the fact that their 2018 FOI was, by their own acknowledgement, badly wrong, way incorrect, and was updated in terms of neonatal deaths in the 2024-2025 Peter Elston FOI request. And then you could see that reflected in the documentation that came into Thirlwall about the list of all the deaths on the unit, and the four that were post-transfer, and the one and so forth. And so that reflected the later FOI. But what's missing is an updated stillbirth, a confirmation of the stillbirths for the same period. When I say the same period, in order to make comparisons, looking at before the indictment period and sometime after, so you get a range of years basically. So I wanted that. We need that to compare, and I also wanted the neonatal death data again with that. So in other words, what Walid Aslan got in 2018, but do it now, please, and do it now comprehensively, all in one go, so we can cross-check it against the 2018 one and the 2024 one. Because they've already acknowledged that on the 2018 one, it was wildly inaccurate. So anyway, I've tried, and then if they deny that, the next response,
the next opportunity I've got then is to go to the Information Commissioner's officer, and sometimes they obviously find in your favour against people, like they have done in respect of Peter Hitchens with his FOIs to Cheshire Police. So we're still waiting to hear the results of that. Actually, I think that was in relation to the closed secret kind of press conference that they had, which was going on, while the defence was summing up, and that's why there wasn't very little reporting of the defence's summing up. So that was just appalling, There's all that kind of stuff going on. I think I've got that right for dates anyway. I might be making little mistakes there, but the principle of it is that he was trying to get information about the that special invited group of people. Obviously Liz Hull's there, and the lady from the BBC, what's her name, the one that's with the coffee guy, I forgot her name, Judith Moritz. Yeah, the usual suspects are all there. And anyway, that's that. Let me pause again. Another thing that stood out to me, back to David Davis's speech, when he says, how did Evans settle, that's the word he used, how did he settle on the cases, the deaths that he chose, implying but not explicitly saying that he was obviously, he was given Lucy Letby's shift chart. And so obviously, when might he have been given that? We know he's explicitly said, Evans has, that he's had a copy of it. Now, I've FOI'd Cheshire Police. I'm just waiting for them to tell me I'm vexatious next, because I've had it from Betsy Cadwallader, I've had it from COCH, and things go in threes sometimes, not always, but maybe they're going to say you're vexatious now, Mr. Vexatious. So anyway, I've FOI'd them to ask them regarding, when did you give Evans the shift chart? Who did it exactly? Who in Operation Hummingbird? Why did you do it? And if it wasn't you that gave it to him, do you know who did, and when, and why? So that's outstanding as well. God, there's quite a bit here actually. This might be a long video. Sorry about that. Yes, it's the other matter of, obviously that's come up many times, but I thought I'd raise it again. We also know that Evans found quote unquote suspicious cases which were later withdrawn due to Lucy Letby not being on duty. There was that figure of 10 that had to be taken out, wasn't there? In addition to that, and I keep banging on about these 25 cases, possibly 2 lots of 25, but probably likely 1 lot of 25 that were never even responded to. Did he have a rota chart in order to select those? And why was there no police action or response, or even a response to that? He's ghosted about those. 25 cases of suspicious of deliberate harm. Now, if he didn't have Lucy Letby's rota chart, and he just did this scattergun thing, and let's say like 16 of them she's not on duty, well, that just further goes to show that he's not reliable globally at all, which we know he isn't anyway, but it's just it would be another indicator of that. But the police aren't going to let us know what those cases were about. They won't even let the guy who sent them to they won't let even Evans know who sent them to them, sent the cases to Cheshire Police. They won't even let him know. They're one-time golden boy. So are they going to let us know what they were about? But they should hand it all over to, this comes up as a later point actually, they should hand it all over to Lucy Letby's defence. Because it all goes to the obvious, screamingly obvious unreliability, and that's putting it mildly, of Dewey Evans. I noted actually that, I don't think, might be wrong, but I don't think David Davis called him Doctor once. I don't think he did. He either called him Evans or Dewey Evans. I thought that was significant. I think it was quite revelatory. Yeah, so I've done that bit. Oh, that intervention by Esther, I think it's Esther McVeigh, sorry if I've got that wrong, that MP, She was there, and she just basically says, "Oh, it was a long trial. Yeah, the long trial thing." They're kind of like replications of your bog standard Twitter troll, really. Don't you know it was the longest trial? And she goes, "Oh, they're out for 100 hours, the jury. Don't you know that?" It's just like NPC stuff, really. NPC stuff, non-playable character stuff. What I did notice after she'd said that, when it panned back to her, there was a wider shot of David Davis continuing speaking. For the rest of the time, she seemed to be just not listening to him at all, just looking at her phone, rubbing her hair. Well, I know I do that as well, but she's just staring at her phone and not listening to what he's saying. She was just there to kind of say that. Yeah, it was a long trial, and they were there for 100 hours debating. There you go. That's the quality of what we're talking about here. She also, as the later person who speaks, who's this minister for policing, but Esther McVeigh also previously, she misunderstands that there have been no appeals. She mixes up, either doesn't care, doesn't know and doesn't care that application for leave to appeal is not the same as having an appeal and the appeal failing. Lucy Letby's had no appeals. She's been denied the possibility to have an appeal thus far. It's not the same. Obviously, these two things are not the same. Whether these misunderstandings by these interventionists or interventions are deliberate or just ignorance, I don't know. Does it matter? Maybe it doesn't matter. Either way, they just can't seem to get it. Now I'm just going back to now. I'll talk a little bit about Guy's film. This issue about Guy Rowland's film Botched, about why Professor Hall would need to defer to Hindmarsh about the insulin. Why do you need to defer? I've said this before. There are other positions to take. You don't have to agree with him. You don't have to, if you don't know. So he's acknowledging, Professor Hall is acknowledging that he's not an insulin expert. Why do you then defer to the person? Why would you have to do that? Is that the only position you can take? So you don't have to say, well, I know better than you. And if you're not an expert, that's okay. I understand that. That's fine. There's a neutral position to take, which is not about agreement, isn't there? And then you would hope then that action would then follow. In other words, Professor Hall would go back to the defence team and say, well, look, I'm not able to effectively deal with this, what's coming at us here, because we're missing an insulin expert. And this is the point that Guy makes in the voiceover right at the end of the film, saying, and this is the onus, the principal onus, is not on Hall, it's on the defence team. You've got to get somebody who knows something about insulin and immunoassays and mass spectrometry and all the aspects that have come up about the total unreliability of those tests being of forensic quality. And Guy sums it up at the end, saying, the defence team didn't have anybody who knew anything about insulin, essentially. They had that other expert there, quote unquote, on the defence side, which is another chocolate teapot person with regard to this matter, who actually just went further than deferring, kind of outrightly agreed with Hindmarsh, who since we found out a few dodgy things about him, haven't we? He's totally unreliable. Defence totally and it's the tip of the spear in all those cases. It would pull all the other ones, all the other rubbish through with milk and air and down the nasogastric tube. It pulls all the other ones along like a train. It's the tip of the spear. Obviously, that's revealed in how the jury acted as well, in terms of it was 11 votes for guilty, first cases that they reported on or gave their findings on. It's the tip of the spear, and the defence had nobody there for Lucy, that's more than an error. That's a calamity. And what's the word? It's
a blunder of epic proportions. It dooms Lucy. That's how bad the defence was in that respect. Utterly dooms Lucy. Because you've got Professor Hall there who doesn't know. I don't see why he has to defer. He can just be neutral about it. Deferring to someone and saying, well, yeah, you're kind of right then, effectively, doesn't it? Or he's saying, well, I'm not going to put up anything about, but I don't think you have to be in this deferring state. Can't you just be neutral, saying, well, I'm not engaging with that. I'm not deferring, and I'm not deferring, and I'm not competing. There's subtleties to this, but if there was anything, if Hall should have had a bit of something about himself to go back and say, look, we need to quickly get somebody who knows something about insulin, or he should have said that right from the beginning, because he's being paid for this as well. Let's not forget that. He knows what the charges all are. He should have said right from the off, before any time, way before he gets to that meeting in Southampton, wasn't it, in that big posh house? He should have been saying to the defence, oh, you've obviously missed this, but let me tell you, when we go there and we meet their experts, I can't contend with them about insulin because I'm not an expert on it. So you better get somebody. This Hall should have said it to them now. If he had something about him, if he had a bit of foresight, tiny bit. Sorry, I'll keep my anger down. If he had a tiny bit of foresight, he's being paid probably a lot of money again, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds. Should have said to the defence team, get an expert. And of course the defence team themselves should have done it. Their calamitous blunder that Lucy Letby is paid for, not them. They get paid. They get paid a lot of money. Lucy Letby pays with her life every day because of these blunders and the lack of foresight and the lack of any dynamism of Hall, complete lack of any dynamism of him, a flatlining energy, Sorry, I'll pull it back a bit. Okay, and then the other Peter endocrinologist guy just agrees with him. So it's over then. It's over. Actually, it's over there at that meeting. It's over. It doesn't matter about the longest trial in history or the 100 hours. It's over there. When you've got no one speaking for Lucy with regard to this insulin crap. Of course, none of it should have gone to trial anyway. But that was a juncture point. That was a node point where the doom is sealed. Hall's partly responsible for that, and the other endocrinologist guy that they had for the defence, and obviously the defence team themselves are responsible for that. That's my point of view anyway. That's my point of view about it. These people have been paid loads of money, and they've done a pretty bad job overall in terms of what the overall task was at hand and what was at risk. Lucy's life. Let me pause it a minute. Yeah, I've got the notes here. Yeah, I think I've said about Esther McVeigh after she does that completely glib, silly, superficial intervention. Oh, it was the longest trial. Like no one's ever said that before. Then you just see her. She's on her phone, like doing this with her hands, looking at the phone like that, and David Davis is pouring out this brilliant summation, and she's looking at the phone, oblivious. It kind of makes you wonder. So the 5 people there, I don't know what those 2 other guys were thinking, or what. There was that guy that talked about it. I can't remember, was he Scottish or Irish, and he was very good, and he was obviously involved and thinking about this. But it's almost like Esther McVeigh's a plant there. Let's get a plant in there to say it was a long trial and they had 100 hours. Put someone in there to say that. And we went through all the processes, don't you know? Oh, we went through all the processes. Yeah, so it's fine, isn't it? It's fine, isn't it? Okay, so I've said that about her. And then now we move on to the other person, Sarah Jones MP, who's the Minister for Police and Crime. Right. Let me just pause it because my notes are all over the shop. Before I start talking about Sarah Jones MP, the Minister for Police and Crime, something that David Davis says, which would be, if if they complied with it, Cheshire Police, it would be absolutely amazing. I don't think you're going to drag it out of them. I don't think you're going to get it out of them, Cheshire Police, which is when David Davis says what's needed is for the Cheshire Police to share with the defence, the current defence, all the logs, the meetings, the decision processes. He said like up to, from one level up to the Gold Command meetings, all that kind of jargon. But basically everything that they did throughout the investigation to show, to demonstrate, if they possibly can, Cheshire Police, that they followed any guidelines at all. But it won't show that. It will show exactly, it will replicate exactly the way that David Davis has typified them, has characterised them, as just basically ignoring everything that they should do and doing loads of things that they shouldn't do, Cheshire Police. So, but if they were to do that, will they do it? Will they do it? And David Davis earlier in the speech says, well, you know, I wrote to the Chief Constable and he basically sent me this short couple of lines back. Well, I'm just not going to reply to you anymore, basically. I'm not discussing it with you. I'm not discussing it any with you. It's over. We're not discussing it. I'm blanking you. And David Davis kind of makes a kind of withering comment about that, saying so much for openness and being open to challenge. Do you remember what Hughes says? We like challenge. We like challenge. We like, it's good. We like challenge. You don't. You do not like challenge. Your Chief Constable doesn't like challenge. Nobody in your organisation wants, likes, dares to. You haven't got the balls to engage with any kind of challenge whatsoever. You're running scared, or you're battening down the hatches. You don't even dare. You don't even dare to tweet on Twitter at all about anything since 2024. So yeah, you're not up for a challenge at all. Cowardly comes to mind as a adjective. Anyway, so where were we there? David Davis says he's writing to the DPP, Director of Public Prosecutions, Starmer's old job. He's a guy called Stephen Parkinson, and he's writing to them. David Davis is going to write to this guy regarding Cheshire Police and the CPS. Obviously, the CPS are implicated in the way that they directed the police, and it was the wrong aspect of the CPS as well. Obviously, they should have gone to a different group within them. The one that was used in this, the full file that was sent, that was not back, didn't go to the local CPS, did it? Went to this other one that they knocked it all back. I don't think that's the only reason they knocked it back. It's not the only reason they knocked it back. It's to do with context and time, and the fact that we're not in 2022 anymore, or 2021, because 2021 would have been 2021 would have been when the CPS agreed and said we're going to charge, wasn't it? 2020, yeah, 2020. 2020, because it'll be the last around the time of the last arrest. Just going to pause a minute, I'm getting a bit tired now. Okay, I'll just start talking a little bit about the Sarah Jones stuff, MP, Minister for Police, Minister for Policing. Anyway, you know the one on police and crime. That's it, police and crime. Crime by the police. No, anyway, I'll try to pull back on the jokes. Not funny anyway, but she starts off saying part of her entree is that despite everything that David Davis had just said for half an hour, she describes Cheshire Police's work as a meticulous and very lengthy investigation. Back to the thing, if it takes a long time, then it's got to be good, isn't it? And it's meticulous, despite everything that David Davis has said. So it's just a complete rejection of everything he said, because it's meticulous. It can't be any of the things that David Davis has outlined and shown and demonstrated, because it's meticulous, isn't it? And it's very long. It's meticulous and long, like the trial's very long, probably meticulous again, isn't it? Then she I think that, I'm sorry, this might sound a bit harsh, but I think she starts using the parents again, bringing in emotion, use it as a strategy. It's not that it's not inappropriate to talk about the parents. Of course, they're vital to talk about, but it's this person at this time, after what David Davis has said, bringing in the parents at that moment in this context. That's the strategy. That's the strategy to push it into somewhere else. Forget about what the police have done. Let's look at the suffering of the parents, what they've been through. Well, we don't know what they've been. Well, in terms of the law has decided, legally, they've been through having their children murdered. But the truth is they haven't. But they have been through tragedy in the loss of their children. So she's saying about what they've been through, but she's got no conception or care about the reality of what they've been through. Just what this faked up story has made them believe or pushed onto them. And she doesn't care whether that's a lie or not, this Minister for Police and Crime. Doesn't care about that at all. She's using in this instance, my belief is she's using those parents as a strategy to defend whatever her position is. And that made me wonder about who actually wrote her response. Does she write it herself? She puts in a few little bits in there about her own, another appeal to emotion, her own experience regarding having a baby going to the NICU. It's not to say that in and of itself isn't an emotional thing. I'm not saying that, but it's why is she using it at this point in time in response to what David Davis has been saying about Cheshire Police. It's appeals to emotion to get away from what he's saying. That's what it's about. And it's appropriate in another context, of course it is, but why bring it in here? She's and then she goes to this lengthy, the bulk of what she says is a totally glib repetition of what happened through the processes and the charges, and she was convicted of 7 and 7, totally like we don't know any of this. It's to give the impression, and it doesn't work on people who've got any kind of thinking ability, give the impression, oh yeah, well, she's impressive. No, she's just repeating just these glib facts about the processes, what was I saying here? So that was just a glib repetition of that. And then she gets it totally wrong a number of times. She's totally misleading. That Lucy Letby's not had any appeals. Zero appeals. She's been refused leave to appeal. And this MP, this minister, is just confusing the two. I think deliberately again. But whether it's deliberate or she just doesn't know or doesn't care or is happy to mislead, that's the standard that we're dealing with. That's the standard we're dealing with. To mislead anyone that's listening that doesn't know or doesn't care to know or doesn't want to find out the difference between leave to appeal and appeal. She's making it sound as though like she's had these appeals. She hasn't had any appeals. Hasn't had any. Lucy Letby hasn't. She says, and she uses another glib phrase, it's all a proper process. This is Sarah Jones. It's a proper process. Meaningless twaddle. It doesn't mean anything. Empty language, empty statement. 2 appeal processes is another thing I wrote down as a quote that she says, Sarah Jones. 2 appeal processes. It's another thing to mislead you through language. She's had no appeals at all. Utterly misleading. This thing about and then David Davis kind of wants to intervene about the IOPC. He says, because you can't, unless you're a victim, you can't make any application to the IOPC, and he asks Sarah Jones to look at tweaking the law to make it possible to do that if you're not the direct victim of something. And then the response from Sarah Jones's quote from her is, we are always looking at ways to improve the IOPC. And just a little bit of a background on that, because I did a little bit of a digging into that. And even this isn't the whole story, but it will give you some sense of the IOPC. we're looking at really about, out of all, this is about complaints about police officers, and it could be something like police brutality, it could be, or it could be failings in all kinds of different ways, failings to properly investigate, all kinds of things, lying, whatever it might be about police officers. Out of every 1,000 complaints that the public make, you're only going to really get one. And do we believe these statistics anyway? But it's terrible, the information they let you know. You're only going to get one that results in any action against an officer. Any action that might not be dismissal, but you're only going to get 1 out of 1,000. You might get 4 that reach a hearing, and 1 that and then out of that hearing, three of them, there's no further action against the person. But 1 in 1,000, that gives you a sense of the improvements and what the IOPC actually is, really. It's a way of protecting the police against complaints. That's what it's there for. It's all about the inversions again. It's there to protect the police against the public complaining about bad officers and bad practices and criminal acts in some cases. Anyway, I'll leave that bit there. And then there's this brilliant thing where the brilliant thing that Chris of Lucy Letby Analysis has done in response to the MP Sarah Jones saying that Cheshire Police have got these high ratings by the Inspectorate of Constabularies. They've been given high ratings, and he's gone through that in inimitable style and really analyse what that actually means. And it's not at all the thing that Sarah Jones is saying, what you wouldn't expect it would be with Cheshire Police. It's something very, very different. They're not, well, then they haven't got good ratings at all. But what I'll do in the the pinned comments, I'll copy and paste. I'm sure Chris won't mind. I'll put him there. Put Chris's long tweets, quite a long tweet, about what that actually means. He's gone into the Inspectorate's actual evaluation of Cheshire Police and what it actually means. So it's quite lengthy, but it's very detailed, and it's brilliantly done. So I'll put that in there as a pinned comment. So really, the vibe from is it Sarah Jones MP, it's really about, don't diss the police because the public will lose faith in them. It's never gone away. It's Lord Denning is still there. The ghost of Denning is there. It's the horrible vista. We can't bear the horrible vista. She doesn't want to say horrible vista, but that's what it is. She doesn't want to say it. If we know the truth, it's a horrible vista, so it's better we don't know the truth. So we can keep our faith. We keep our faith by not seeing the horrible vista, and the horrible vista is the truth. So we mustn't see the truth, so we don't see the horrible vista. Denning, the ghost of Denning, is alive and well, paradoxically. Same old, that's what I put there. Because she says, Sarah Jones, in respect, in some way, of obviously the things that David Davis has been saying, that he's this is a quote from her, implying impropriety of Cheshire Police where none has been established. Well, okay, you need to go through a process to fully establish it. But it's pretty clear that there's a pretty good chance that there's impropriety there. And if there isn't, let Cheshire Police explain themselves. And as David Davis is saying, hand over all their processes and all their meetings and all their logs, decision logs, to the defence as well. Make them public, actually, as best as you can. They don't want to do that because impropriety is their middle name. So they don't want to be doing that. So there's that. And then another quote from Sarah Jones towards the end of her intervention. I don't even know what to call it. Thing she's reading that somebody else has written for her. Someone else has written that. Someone else has written that. Who? God knows. Someone. Upheld on appeal. it's all been upheld on appeal. Things have been held up on appeal in terms of like the baby K trial, upheld on appeal. There's been no appeal. There's been no appeal. Sarah Jones MP, Minister for Police and Crime, been no appeal, and you know that. You've got to know that, but you're misleading the listening public, who might not want to, or who won't, or might not want to differentiate between application for leave to appeal and an appeal. Leave to appeal was denied, and then they just finish off with Happy Easter, and it all goes a bit kind of strangely jolly, and the speaker, it seems a bit of a character, kind of Happy Easter, and then this bloke comes in with a sword, dressed up in a old-fashioned garb with a sword and a big gold whatchamacallit. I don't know what to call it other than a whatchamacallit. Is he Black Rod? I don't know what he's. Maybe it's another name, but this is nothing against the guy doing that job. He's doing that job, and nothing against him. But it's the idea that it's happening at all while they're still doing this. Guy in like something out of the 1700s comes in with a sword and this massive gold phallic type thing, holding it, gold, and then it all fades to grey. That's bizarre. It's weird. It's absurd. Nothing against him personally. He's just fulfilling this role. He's got this job, whatever. It's silly. It's creepy. And then that's the end of that. But David Davis has done a sterling, amazing job there. Fantastic. Hopefully it's seen by a huge number of people. Guy Rowland and all the contributors to the two parts that he's done, absolutely fantastic. I might leave the other thing. I was going to talk about having police officers in the CCRC. I don't need to cover that. I don't think it's a good idea. You could say, well, if it was Dr. Watts, well, then okay, yeah, on what we've seen, how he's analysed this, then yes. If it was Operation Merlin Falcon working for the CCRC, yes. The guy who did the Beverly Allitt investigation, don't know enough about him, but this is the point, you see. If you can take two examples like that, but are you really going to get? Are you going to get a? I might as well finish off and say this. Are you going to get Operation Merlin Falcon, his quality of critical thinking? Or are you going to get a Dr. Watts there applying to be both applying to and being accepted, both sides of it, for the CCRC? Are you going to get someone like either of those two people with those kind of critical thinking skills? No, you're not. You're going to get a Stuart Edwards. You're going to get a Stuart Edwards and the one that was there before. You're going to get a Stuart Edwards that just thought Operation Hummingbird was just peachy keen and was absolutely fabulous, and Hughes deserved the SIO award, and everyone in the whole country, all the SIOs, think he's a jolly good fellow and it's the best thing anyone's ever done. That's what you're going to get when you get police officers in the CCRC. That's the standard you're going to get, because that's what you do get. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Thanks for listening. It's quite a long video, but I didn't think it'd be that long. And it's now 4:12 a.m. Signing off. Good night. Sleep well if you're sleeping, and God bless. Bye-bye.